Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, mechanic tries to scam me, receives public embarrassment in return. I got a little girl in trouble on purpose. Non-French people telling me how to eat French food. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Mechanic tries to scam me, receives public embarrassment in return. I, 26F, do not look like I would know a single thing about cars. 5 feet 3 inches with long blonde hair, soft girly appearance, and an eternal baby face that makes me look about 15 to 16 years old. I drive a rather beat up looking 2004 Avalon. My dad and brother are both mechanics. Not my profession, but I've learned a thing or seven from them and am very comfortable working on cars. I'm only mentioning my appearance because it's pretty common for mechanics to assume that I'm an idiot about cars. A while back, I was pretty overwhelmed with life and didn't have a good space to do it, so I took my car in to get the oil changed. The place offered a free of charge head-to-toe inspection for any repairs that might need to be made. I knew my car was fine. I had pretty recently changed the air filter and brake pads. Rotors had maybe 40k miles on them and were in great condition. New serpentine belt too. Literally just didn't feel like changing my oil. Relevant notes: before I went to the shop, I actually checked my air filter and it was, in fact, pristine. Also, I usually call my dad while I'm working on my car so we can chat so he knows what repairs/maintenance I've done and that my car is well taken care of. After they changed my oil, the guy came back with the inspection results on a clipboard and was holding my air filter. He had this grave look on his face like something was wrong. Mind you, this is a very busy place and there were lots of customers in the waiting room. He told me that we needed to go over the results because my car was about to be completely broken down and also not safe to drive if I didn't get several repairs done ASAP because these were all completely shot. The repairs: new brake pads, new rotors, new calipers, replace serpentine and drive belt, new air filter, new compressor, or my AC will not work, a heavy threat in the middle of summer in FL, and a couple more generic things. He showed me my air filter that was filled with dead grass, a dead wasp, some dirt, and hair. Brah. He really scooped some bullshit off the shop floor and put it in my new air filter to try and freak me out. The total? About $1,500 worth of work. It would be more expensive anywhere else, but he was willing to give me a deal. So I immediately start buying myself time by asking some basic questions that I knew he would have to explain so I could nod at him all wide-eyed while I came up with a good way to respond to what he was doing. What does the serpentine belt do? Is it important? Etc. I texted my dad, "I'm calling in a sec, just play along." Told the guy, "OMG, that's so scary, I can't believe I was driving around like that. Thank you so much for caring. I don't have the money, so let me call my dad real quick to see if he can help me out. I can't afford this." I then proceeded to enhance my dramatic performance by even working up a tear while I called my dad. The guy is standing there with me in front of all the customers. I put my phone on speaker and gave my dad a whole sob story about how I need money again. "I'm so sorry, can he help me?" He asked what the repairs were and how much. I said ick, but it sounds really bad. He says that it's dangerous. Dad, I can't be without a car. What am I going to do? Then I asked the guy to tell my dad what the repairs were. He rattles it all off and my dad is playing his part perfectly. "Oh wow, Mom, oh my goodness, I'm glad you caught this so she's not in danger anymore." Little did this scammer know, he was the one in danger. He hands the phone back and I drop the facade and start laughing really hard. As soon as Dad hears me, he started cackling into the phone. I said, "Dad, do you hear this bullshit? Get this, he brought me my new air filter I just put in to show me how dirty it was. He pulled shit off the floor or something and rubbed it on there." Dad and I continue to crack up. The audience in the waiting room was also cracking up. Scammy Mechanic was beet red and completely at a loss for words. Head down and some stuttering was his response. I handed him my air filter and told him to go vacuum it out and to make sure to let me see it before he put it back in. I sat and watched him put it back once it was clean and also watched him pull my car out to make sure he didn't do anything horrible while I wasn't looking. I might have taken it a little far, but I really hate when mechanics take advantage of people who don't know anything about cars, so this felt like a massive win. Big props to my dad for his performance and for teaching me about cars. I had something similar happen to me with the air filter. Guy brought out an air filter claiming it was mine and so filthy it was dangerous. I told him that wasn't my air filter. He asks me how I know and I tell him I don't have a carburetor. Dude didn't think I'd notice he brought in this big round circle and mine was a little rectangle. Still SMH 20 years later. Dude. That's hilarious. He at least brought me the one from my car, but he had the nerve to put some gross shit in my new filter, so what's worse? I always write the date on my air filters when I put them in. If they bring me a ratty air filter, I always ask how they got the Sharpie off. Yeah, been there, done that. I'm a woman in my 50s, and when I was in my 20s I did all of the tune-ups on our truck. I was having problems pulling a spark plug. It was in an area difficult to get to. I went to our local gas station/mechanic and opened up the hood and told him I wanted that spark plug replaced. He told me I needed to replace all of them and I told him I already done that. He mentioned replacing the points, spark plug wires, etc. Told him I done that. He looks at me with a shocked look on his face and asked me to marry him. I told him I already had one at home and didn't want another. You did not go too far at all, he did. He was about to scam someone out of $1,500. I wonder how many poor souls this man has scammed. That is just vile behavior, people living paycheck to paycheck these days and rely on their cars to get to work or their kids to school. I can't imagine the mental and financial stress he has put onto others because they actually can't afford the repairs he brings up to them. Were you able to talk to his boss? I would have left such a sour review afterwards, my God. Almost had a mechanic try that on me. I just needed new tires. The lady comes back and says you need new brakes, rotors and shocks. That will be about $2,000. So I said, thank you for the letting me know. And walked out, paying for just the tires. A couple weeks later, I checked them out myself with my dad, also mechanic, and said they are still fine. A year later, changed the brakes and a caliper, shredded one side completely, for about $500 on my own. Yep. And honestly, if he would have caught the thing I knew I did need, that would have helped his case. Struts. But we are at 220k miles and it still rides fine with no big issues. I'm not too pressed about it. Once I went in to get my oil changed at a chain place while very obviously pregnant. The tech came back very concerned telling me I needed my coolant changed and my transmission serviced ASAP, showed me some dirty green water and my burnt transmission fluid. I played along, got a quote with a bunch of added extras. You could just see this dude adding all the dollar in his head. I played along right up to the part where you sign off on the work to be done. Then I pulled out the receipt from the dealer from a month before where I had a new transmission and radiator installed. Dude cursed me out for making him waste 45 minutes on MY bullshit, then tried to hand me a mini Bible. I'm still carless. Sure, it would be convenient, but for the most part one really don't need it and get along very good on public transportation. This is actually my biggest fear whenever I think about getting a car, motorcycle, quad or whatever. I really don't consider myself stupid, that is just something I have no experience or knowledge on. I really hope I'll have a mechanic I can trust and doesn't take advantage of me. I got a little girl in trouble on purpose. I have a 1-year-old son, and we decided to go to the playground one day. On this day, a bunch of kids were there, among whom was a bratty 4 years old or so girl who had a mean streak to her. My son, who didn't know better, Went close to her and she just tells him, "What are you doing here? You're not invited here." I agree, I kinda didn't like my son being bullied, but I figured he doesn't understand these things yet and I didn't want to be one of those sensitive helicopter parents who shield their kids from everything. So I just took my son and we played elsewhere. Later on, I see that her grandma was there and it seemed like she's not one of those loosey-goosey grandma, so while the girl was close to her grandma, and it dawned on me I could bait her to be mean to my kid in front of Granny. So I placed my son close to her since I figured out he wouldn't understand anyways. And it worked. She said, "You're not welcome here. Go away." And her grandma heard, and she got in trouble, and the grandma said they now will go home since she can't be nice. She fought it, but couldn't do anything. Part of it I think Granny just wanted to go home, lol. Good for you. No bloodshed. Good for Grandma too. You did her a semi-favor. You gave her the opportunity to display some behavior that an adult in her life should be correcting, and fortunately, Grandma was up to the task. Yeah, thankfully the grandma corrected that behavior. Seen too many parents and guardians get defensive and let their kids get away with almost anything. Those kids almost always turn out horribly. What is it with kids this young with creating cool groups already? I have a 16-mo and we encountered similar behavior from 3 to 5 years old while at public playgrounds. I did as you and usually tell my daughter to go play in another area, but why aren't kids that age told by their parents to be inclusive and mindful or others? Surely I would hate if my daughter will single out other kids at the park. This will have consequences if caught at the earliest signs. Last year my 3-year-old daughter and I encountered a mean little girl at the park. She was 4-ish. Everyone knew the girl was mean. She had a reputation. Yesterday I ran into her nanny at the park. She now takes care of the little girl's brother. She mentioned that the meanie got kicked out of school twice last year. I chuckled and said, "I'm not surprised, lol." When my daughter was very small and not very verbal yet, she was at a playground where there was a group of slightly older girls, maybe about 4 or so. My daughter was interested in what the girls were doing and one of them noticed and was annoyed. She walked up to me and said that she needed my daughter to go away, expecting me to hop up and take her away. I leaned down to mean girl in training and said, "I don't care what you need." The look on her face was pure astonishment, and it may have been the first time in her tiny life that someone told her she didn't matter. Non-French people telling me how to eat French food. I don't know if this counts as petty revenge, but here goes. Currently in Paris with my partner and staying here for a month. My in-laws, they're French, this will be relevant, have an apartment in the city so we can stay for as long as we want. My partner was nearby taking a phone call, so I went to a very touristy and popular cafe nearby to try their famous chocolate chaude and see what the hype is about, and croissant so I could dip it in the hot chocolate, a very popular breakfast for the French. As my order arrived, a family of 4, parents, 2 daughters, sat at the table next to me. I was tearing off a small piece of the croissant when the mom cleared her throat and said to me, "Hon, it's usually eaten with a fork and knife so your fingers don't get greasy." I turned and see all of their disapproving faces, silently judging me for being so uncultured. "Oh, sorry." And picked up my fork and knife. I could see my partner walking towards me having finished his phone call, and I slowly cut my croissant with the knife and fork. My partner saw me and burst out laughing. He was like, "What are you doing?" So I turned innocently at the family and said, "Well, they told me I have to eat it with a knife and fork so I won't look uncultured." Partner turned to them and said in a very exaggerated French accent, "Madam, are you French?" They all shook their heads no. He continued, "We only eat croissants with our hands. No French will tell you otherwise. Please don't spread this nonsense if you are not French." They all ate their croissants with their hands and my partner looking over them like a proud teacher lol. Edit, to those saying I'm spineless. I am more than capable of defending and handling things like this myself. I chose not to. I chose to say sorry and stall and let them think they were right. Why? Who better to tell them how to eat a French pastry in France than a French? It's so much pettier. So kindly get the F***ck off, s'il vous plaît. Added to my to-do list, convince an American to ask for knife and fork in a McDonald's. Why would anyone care how a stranger eats a croissant? Let alone care enough to comment on it? Also, cafes usually have a toilet with sinks and soap, so greasy hands aren't an issue. They're on vacation and still miserable and bored enough to try to control everyone around them, lol. French person here, and your partner is right. These people were the uncultured ones, and they're also a little rude in my opinion. Paris is a nice city with a lot of things to see, but if you like France, I'll advise you to visit the rest of our country to see more and taste other French food. Happy face. Born and raised in Eastern Europe and went to college in a major city there, people there ate everything with a knife and a fork when dining out. To the point where, because my parents hadn't taught me that growing up, I had to take a crash course of knife and fork eating when I was told that the team I'd worked construction with my first summer in college was going to go to a fancy restaurant in September to celebrate the end of a good construction season. I was 18 and spent a month eating every meal I had in my dorm room and student cafeteria with a knife and fork until I got good at it. People were that serious about it. But never had I ever seen anyone eat a flaky pastry like a croissant that way. It's just weird and impractical. Did they also tell you to hold your pinky finger out when drinking the hot chocolate by any chance? They must have seen the Seinfeld episode when everybody started eating chocolate bars, cookies, etc. with a knife and fork and thought that looked cultured and didn't know the scene was a mockery. Do you know where they were from? I'm in the US and have never seen anyone eat a croissant with a knife and fork unless they were cutting it in half or something like that. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.